Welcome to the Dealing with Goliath podcast. The mission of Dealing with Goliath is to sharpen the psychological edge in business leaders with skin in the game who want to be more effective under pressure, uncover hidden value, and increase profitability. With expert guests across the business spectrum, we deliver gems of wisdom delving into their methods, their thinking, and approach to business, life, and problem solving. This is the double espresso shot of insight through our short interview format. We're quick and concise with 5 questions in about 9 minutes. I'm your host, Al McBride, and my guest today is Dov Gordon. Now, Dov Gordon helps consultants get ideal clients by becoming under-the-radar leaders in their industry. And you can find much more about him at profitablelationships.com. On a personal note, I have to say, Dov is a trusted friend and mentor to so many people that are impressive and admirable to me and that have been a huge support and of guidance to me over the last few years. That he's sort of a mentor's mentor, if you will. So I'm absolutely thrilled and very pleased to have him on the show today. So Dov, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
I'm very glad to have you. Very glad to have you. So let's kick off. So who is your ideal client and what's the biggest challenge that they face?
My ideal client is usually somebody who's really good at what they do, master of their craft. Could be they've done really well as a corporate executive and then they decided it's time to leave, or perhaps they were a corporate refugee as a consequence of COVID. And they are looking for, a simple, clean, repeatable system that helps them get ideal clients consistently. And I'd say they're not really interested in putting themselves out there as the celebrity type, the guru type. Really, they just want to be free to do great work with great clients and make a great income. And that's who it is.
That sounds ideal. Yeah, as you say, you don't want to try and be something that you're not. You just want to excel and you want to serve people. I hear you. So what are some of those common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem?
I think a lot of people just assume that getting clients is going to be a lot easier than it is. I know I did. I think most people do. They figure, well, I'm really good at what I do. I did really well in the corporate world. I just hang up a shingle or digital shingle or whatever it might be, and I'll get clients. And turns out it's not nearly that simple, really not. And then usually the next mistake is running after all the shiny objects, the technological, the fancy approaches, and completely missing the fundamentals, the foundation. So yeah, you could focus on becoming a Facebook ads ninja, drive people to an evergreen webinar or whatever it might be. You could become a content marketing machine, which few people want to be. A lot of it ends up just being noise. You could rebrand, you can publish a book, all of which are good things to do. And it's just that they have to be done in a framework. It has to be part of a thoughtful, simple direction so that everything you're doing adds up. Otherwise, everything you're doing takes you in a different direction. And that's really where most people end up: overwhelmed, diffused, and confused.
And frustrated.
Yes.
And I think you're speaking to a lot of people here who've been through those first few years out on their own. As you said, they know they're pretty good at what they do. And they think, as you say, that that'll carry them through. But then there's all this marketing or networking or all these sort of things that you're suddenly doing that you don't particularly want to be doing. And as you say, you're bouncing from one guru or a shiny object that is supposed to solve all your problems to another. Mm-hmm. So what in that light then is one valuable free action that the audience can implement that will help them with that issue? So it mightn't solve it, but it'll just at least maybe turn their mindset or their trajectory in the right direction.
I would say that you need to get really clear about really this one thing, which is, what is the problem that you're helping solve? What is the result that you're going to enable? And for who? Now, we've all heard some version of that. So I want to try to present it a little bit differently, because sometimes when you hear an old idea in a fresh way, it'll land, perhaps finally fall into place, like, Tetris. right?
Right.
So you need to recognize that the first job of whatever marketing and selling you're going to do to get in front of your ideal clients, the first job of whatever work you're going to do is to get their attention and interest. That means that they have to look up from whatever it is that they're dealing with or distracted by or whatever it might be, notice you, and their brain has to go, wow, that's interesting. Anything else and you fail. They just walk back, they continue going what they're doing. Like if we were at a convention, at a conference, and we're walking through the exhibitor booth, and there are all these signs and all these opportunities for us to pay attention to this or that, and we're going to ignore most of it. But suddenly there's some sign or something that you notice, and you say, hey, let's go over there and have a look. So we were walking straight this way, and suddenly we decide, okay, we'll turn and go. Something not only got our attention, it got our interest. And the only way you get somebody's attention and interest so that they change their plans and head in your direction is if you talk about a problem they have and don't want, and or if you talk about a result they want and don't have. Now, a result, it also could be an experience they want and don't have, a change they want and don't have. If you talk about anything else, it's just not going to work. Their brain is subconsciously asking, should I pay attention? Is it interesting? And their brain goes, no, all in a blink. So the one tip that's really key for getting started is to get really clear. What are the problems that you help solve? What are the results that you enable? And who has those problems? Who wants those results? It sounds easier than it actually is. It's simple, but it's not so easy. So it requires thought, because you got to enter that conversation going on in the mind of the ideal client. To quote a very famous observation in the direct marketing world, I forget the guy who said that right now, but that quote's been going around for decades. And if you think about it, as I did a long time ago, I was thinking, well, if good advertising, as he said, enters the conversation going on in the mind of the ideal client, well, what is that conversation? And I realized all we're ever thinking about is a problem that we have and don't want, and or some kind of result we want and don't have. And if we could enter the conversation at the level that they're thinking it, then suddenly the reaction is instant. Like, wow, wait, you're talking to me. How do you just articulated the problem I have and don't want better than I could have done it myself? You just described the result that I want better than I did myself. You must really understand me. And then you've got their attention and interest.
It's so true. I mean, this is some of very much a parallel of what I do in more of a one-to-one scenario in the negotiation, which is you need to understand the world of the person on the other side. And that's exactly what you're talking about. In a slightly larger scale, of course, but it's the same idea, isn't it? It's really understand where their head is at.
What I'm talking about is one-to-one, and it's one-to-many. Yeah, it's both. But I would say it's that, and it's really a little more nuanced, because it's not enough for you to be convinced that you understand them. They need to feel that you understand them. I know that's what you meant, but I want to highlight that, because often we think,
glad you clarified that. Yeah, absolutely.
People think, well, yeah, I understand them. I know what they want, but they're not responding. They're not listening. Well, okay, they need to feel that they understand. They need to feel that you understand, and that's the real goal. You got to get to that point.
That's the subtlety, as you say, that you can feel you understand them, but that also hints at something else. That hints that often we think we understand their needs. And it's not that we're necessarily wrong, but the hierarchy of their needs might be different.
Correct, yeah.
Where we go, oh, well, this is clearly the problem. And they say, yeah, that's one of the problems, but it's not, as you say, the one that makes me turn and give you my attention. And if I give you my attention, that it actually makes me then take some action.
Right.
So, so might you have a free resource that people could potentially use or gain some insights from to help them with that trajectory?
Yeah, it relates to the approach that I generally take clients through, which is becoming what I think of as an under-the-radar leader in their industry.
Right, and that's a very interesting phrase, under the radar. Yeah, talk to us about that. Yes,
and people sometimes ask me, they say, well, like, if you're looking to get clients, you need to become well-known, you need to build your brand, and all that's true. And the idea of becoming an under-the-radar leader in your industry is simply recognizing this, that if you form your own network, I call it an alchemy network, that's comprised of 30, 50, 100, 150 well-placed people across your industry. It could be colleagues, or it could be a network of your ideal clients. You'll have all the business that you want. And most of the people I'm dealing with are small firms, individuals, although I am looking to do the same thing for larger firms, more mid-sized, larger firms, and I'm sure the same opportunity exists. But nevertheless, it's having those relationships with the right people across the industry. You'll have all the business that you want. And I'm not talking about a LinkedIn network. I'm not talking about a Facebook group or anything like that. But the concept I laid out in a short video training at profitablерelationships.com/Goliath in your honor.
Thank
for your
you.
listeners, Goliath, right?
That's the one.
Yeah. So profitablerelationships.com/Goliath. Just lay out the framework, the strategy that I've used it myself for 10 years before I started helping others, or almost 10 years before I started helping other people do the same thing. Because for so many years, I was lost in the expert's curse. I was a victim of the curse of the expert, where you don't really value what you've done. I tend to undervalue what I've got. But I've come to see through helping other people that it really is valuable, and there are certain ways of thinking about it, and certain steps that or approaches you want to take in order to ensure success. So that's what I'd recommend.
It's a very interesting point that about, some would go as far as to call it imposter syndrome to a certain degree, but often I don't think people even have imposter syndrome per se. They don't feel like an imposter, but there is that level of doubt that comes with the expertise. I think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where essentially the more expert you are, the more aware of all the things you don't know and all the subtleties and gradients of your knowledge, compared to a beginner or a novice who has a much thinner understanding of what's in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you know, the more you realize that you don't know.
Exactly, which brings a certain level of humility. But as you said, it's about getting around that, getting through that, and putting that in perspective.
Unless you're in politics, in which case you think that you know better than everybody else. But yeah, there are those, or politics or media, I suppose, where you think you know better than everybody else.
Well, as I said, from the biographies of the presidents behind you, I think they disagree with that. There's a vision, and then there's also humility.
Exactly. Well, that's the difference between a politician and a leader or statesman. And I think that there are some politicians that definitely qualify as leaders. There are some media personalities who are qualified as leaders, but they certainly seem to be the minority. I think that I tend to be more appreciative or more willing to listen or to follow somebody who demonstrates that they have a they have a humility. They have a respect for the complexity of the world, rather than showing their adulation for the genius of mankind. As smart as we all are, we're not as smart as we like to think we are. And I'd much rather, I'm much more drawn to somebody who you can tell from what they say and how they say it, that they appreciate that. They're, as smart as they are, they know that there's a lot more that they don't know and don't understand. And those are the kinds of leaders and people, because we're all forced to trust other people. None of us has firsthand knowledge of many of the things that we accept as true. Right? We're all forced.
Very good point.
Yeah, but we see. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I couldn't agree more. It shows it's a lot of, on one hand, reflection, but on the other, there's a self-awareness there, and an acceptance of one's own limitations or faults in either in our character or in our thinking.
Yeah, we all want things to be a certain way. We're all biased. We're all, falling. Well, I'd say most of us, again, I think, fall short of living up to our own standards for ourselves. And there are different ways of handling it. The majority of us, we end up undermining ourselves. We end up not even standing up and making the impact that we are fully 100% capable of. Then there are the smaller numbers that, who they seem to be unaware. I'm saying this because, again, I'm an outsider. I don't know what people are thinking, but what they say and their behavior
Again, that
seems to.
shows a certain level of humility in
Well,
itself.
I mean, I really mean it, but like we're all forming our judgments. I'm just going to keep an open mind. Like if somebody shows me evidence that I misjudged, I'll take it into account and change my mind immediately. A foolish inconsistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. I forget who said that, but there's no pride in being foolishly consistent.
Absolutely.
But there are, of course, a small number of people who seem to really think that they are, the gift to mankind, that we all need them, we'd be lost without them, and they're the ones who cause the greatest damage. Like I don't trust a politician who doesn't trust me to speak my mind, who wants to limit free speech.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's the most valuable thing we have, really, is that exchange of ideas. It's also
free speech is the human right that ensures every other human right. If you're a human rights activist or a human rights crusader, you believe in human rights, then you have to agree that the most basic human right is free speech. Now, that doesn't mean the limitations that I believe there should be on free speech are usually the ones that we find in terms of like that you should not be allowed to call for direct calls for violence. Again, that's of course wrong, and reasonable laws against slander and that type of thing. So, but aside from that, people need to be free to say what they want, and then you can counter it. And I'm saying this because I think that we have there's a real attack on this going on these days. And anybody who really claims to be a human rights activist of any kind, who is trying to limit the basic human right of freedom of expression, is lying to themselves and to us. You got more than you bargained for, didn't you?
We certainly did, but I very much take certainly the point on that idea of dialogue, and on that idea of, to me, it points at that idea in transactional analysis, which is very simple. People like transactional analysis and they use it in a lot of trainings because it's a simple paradigm people can intuitively understand of parent to adult, parent to child, or adult to adult is essentially the dynamics. And what you're talking about is encouraging adult to adult conversations, where I can say something that might offend you and you can say something that might offend me, but we actually hear each other out and have a dialogue, rather than you saying, you can't say that.
Right.
Which is very much like a parent saying, you can't do that, reprimand.
Yes. And I also believe that we are too quick. I'm saying we, but I don't know that I'm guilty of this, because I tend to assume that people are coming from a good place. They have good intention, even if they disagree with me, even if I think that their idea of how to move forward as an individual, as a society, even if I believe that is going to be highly destructive, I will tend to believe that overwhelmingly it's coming from a good place. And I think it's
a really interesting point, Dov. I mean, this is in relationship counseling. This was principle number one. Mm-hmm. This was often for couples and whatnot, but it's any relationship, is ascribe positive intent, even if they're being aggressive towards you, even if they're using violent language towards you. It's that, it's this idea of hurt people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's being able to see beyond, as you say, that first initial signals that people often stop at. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But we're accepting more and more. We're accepting this type of, it's not dialogue, it's not conversation. We're accepting more and more that if somebody disagrees with me, it's because they are a this or a that.
Absolutely.
And that is sometimes true. It's usually not true. And it's just that is what's dividing society. That's the attitude that's dividing society right now as we speak, the end of 2020. It's our inability to recognize the humanity in somebody who disagrees with us.
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, my next question was going to be, what do you believe that many people don't? But I think we've covered a certain
We've
element
covered
of
that.
that.
Yeah,
But
we certainly covered that.
moving back, maybe the focus back into more of the business scenarios. I mean, you mentioned quite a few approaches that a lot of people take, whether it's, as you said, one could write a book, one could, spend a lot of time on Facebook ads or LinkedIn or all these other mediums, which appear to be more tools than anything else. There's nothing inherently wrong with those approaches, but as you said, it's having this core theme and core plan, almost what I'm hearing, and this is why it may be way off, is almost like having a clearer values for what you and your business and what problem you solve, what result you give, but in that more inherent way. Can you talk to us a bit more about that approach and about that concept or philosophy and its application, of course?
Just to make sure I follow, the concept of rooting everything you're doing in a clear problem, clear result?
Well, rooting everything in a clear problem, but also, as I said, I'm looking for your more unique point of view on this idea of your way versus everybody else's way.
Oh, okay. Well, so like the under the radar approach, building an alchemy network, that approach, I assume that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, here's the thing. There's no one tactic or one strategy or one approach that's right for everybody. And I realized this many years ago. I was, when I myself, I don't consider myself a natural marketer or salesperson, or, I don't consider myself the charismatic guru type by any stretch. But, I was my ideal client. I was the kind of person who knew I had a lot to offer, but I did not know how to get that across, how to find my ideal clients, how to communicate it, how to talk about what I did in a way that, instantly earned their attention, and then built that towards their respect and the opportunity to serve them and to be well compensated for it. So, I looked around and I saw, what are other people doing? And I saw people doing all sorts of things, especially, online, and they would, putting themselves forward as these all-knowing, omniscient kind of masters. Just do what I did, and you too can have 3 homes and boats and cars and all that. And I don't know, personally, nothing wrong with that. It just didn't really talk to me. And some of the way they would talk to their audiences on their videos and their emails, I felt it was very condescending, very disrespectful. I also came to, and so I can never do that. I just really see that most people, they have a lot to offer, and to struggle, to be struggling to connect with your ideal client. What that really means is that I wake up in the morning and I know that I have a lot to offer, but I'm kind of limited because I simply don't, not that I don't know how to offer that value or do it. I just don't know how to get other people to see it. And there's too much out there where basically people are saying, hey, if you follow these steps, you can have what I did. You'll also success. But there's something more fundamental that's missing. If I was standing side by side with a master chef and we're, both working on following the same recipe, my results would not be as good as the master chef. His would look better, taste better, smell better, maybe, And why is that? Because we're both following the same series of steps, a recipe. I mean, that's what it is. It's a plan. You follow the steps. The difference is that the master chef has a depth of understanding about the properties of each ingredient and how they interact with each other and with heat and with, moisture, liquid, water over time. So it's that depth of understanding that he's bringing to the simple plan that I lack. And I came to realize that people really need to understand the basic skills, or there's certain skills or ahas or something you need to bring to the marketing and selling of your expertise. And it's not, it's not like lots and lots of stuff. It's not these massive courses that you've got to learn everything in order to be ready. It really boils down to a small number of fundamentals. And we touched on some of them earlier, like being really clear. What's the problem you help solve? What's the result that you enable? And it has to be at the right level. But it also has to do with this, is that most people who have an expertise, they're not looking to scale their business to 7 figures and beyond. I don't believe it's true. I think most people are not looking to manage big teams. Most people are not looking to grow big businesses. Most people are looking to be doing great work with great clients, making a great income, probably mid 6, maybe upper 6 figures, and have some time and freedom to enjoy the money with their family and just save some up, and so they know they've got savings for retirement. They want to be doing great work, and therefore most people, it's about relationships. Yes, have a podcast, and it fits beautifully with having a podcast with the Alchemy Network model. Yes, have a good brand, have a nice website, write a book. The thing is that all those things, if they're built on a central platform, what I think of as the golden platform, that's the Alchemy Network, everything else works more, it all adds up, takes you in the same direction instead of spreading you in many different directions. So when you recognize that, hey, I may not be the kind of person who's looking to put myself out there as this guru type, but when I'm talking to a potential client, I listen, I connect, I ask good questions. They can see that I have valuable experience. If that's you, then take the approach of becoming the under the radar leader in your industry. And over time, your reputation will spread without you having to focus on being somebody that you're not, and without you having to focus on, kind of getting yourself out there. It'll just happen as a consequence of contributing to the people that you care about most, that you're most able to serve.
That's fabulous. I mean, there's so many great insights in there, and you remind me of so many great points. Particularly, I mean, starting with the context there, you reminded me of Perry Marshall always said, people can steal his copy word for word and it won't have the same effect because they don't have all the context built up around it. They don't have the reputation and all the intention built up on either side of that piece of copy. So it's next to useless to do that.
Well, Perry always struck me as a good person who is masterful at what he does. So I'm glad that we see eye to eye.
I've met him in Dublin several times actually, and he's exactly as you think he is. I met him once in Tel Aviv actually. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. As you say, one of those guys that isn't really a guru per se, but just he also works with real businesses rather than a business and how to sell people on developing a business, the sales space. He's
a thinker, and he has a respect for complexity.
Very much. But yeah, there's a lot of great insights there. I mean, and again, I have an insight into what the next answer might be, but I'll ask it anyway. In your work, what do you enjoy most about it? What aspects really give you that little boost, that thrill?
I just really enjoy helping ordinary people be extraordinary consultants, which means helping ordinary people who were frustrated by being overwhelmed and running in different directions, kind of not seeing their full value, or not see, or rather being frustrated that others are not seeing it, and suddenly they have a breakthrough and a success, and they realize that, wow, yeah, I could do this. And they always knew they could do this. It's just that their outer results weren't matching what they knew was possible. And I just really enjoy that. It's a journey that I've been on, that I am on. I don't claim to have arrived. There's always, as long as you're alive, there's another challenge. There are things that will frighten us, there are things that will excite us, and we'll be happy about things and sad about things, and we'll bounce around, and there'll be forces that come to our aid and forces that try to stop us. And Yeah, I mean, I just
Just to point out, there's a lovely humility there again. It is very consistent with our conversation because there's so many, as you say, experts who mightn't think of themselves as gurus, but they still, I know I sometimes have it as well, where I think I'm meant to have all of the answers because I now
mhm.
identify as this and this on LinkedIn. Whereas you said it's difficult sometimes to say, well, yeah, I have a lot of experience in this, I have a lot of knowledge, I have a lot of unique point of views, but it's still difficult to say, you know what, I'm still learning here, I'm still developing, I'm still on that journey.
But that's the truth, and everybody knows that's the
Mm,
truth. But there, you know, and some people appreciate that honesty, and a lot of people don't because, and again, I don't know what anybody's thinking. So all we can do sometimes is we're all guessing, we're all forming judgments based on what people say and what they do. I just think that we all need to keep an open mind and be willing to rejudge, reinterpret if given new evidence. But
very much.
I think that the people who are drawn to those who put themselves up on a pedestal are looking to do that. That's what they're looking for. They want to be able to be the savior without having to be the master. And I don't mean master of others. I mean master of self, master of your
Mhm.
craft. That takes work. That's hard, you know?
Very much.
So, and
You just say you're alluding to something that you sparked in my head earlier, which was when I was doing a lot of research for exactly what my clients really need, how they
mhm,
see their problem, all those sort of things, doing all those discovery conversations with potential clients and actual clients. And one of the things, it was enunciated more so in a lot of the creative business owners and entrepreneurs that I worked with. But I noticed in the parallel with other businesses, and it was basically that what their greatest fear, other than having to let some of their staff go,
mhm,
second to that, but very high up, was the fear of doing mediocre work,
yeah,
work that they weren't proud of, that they couldn't stand over. So
mhm.
as you said, it's that. Oh, that's the counterbalance to knowing that you're on a
That's
journey and developing the whole time is.
that is. I'm well experienced in that fear. I I worry about that more than I should, and there is some kind of balance between really just moving forward imperfectly, uh, and knowing that doing it like this is contributing to somebody out there, and that's what I need to do because it's contributing or creating work that's imperfect but still valuable to somebody. That's part of the process of getting better and better all the time. If we sit around waiting until we're perfect, we'll never be perfect because we're not. You're not going to be a master if you're not on the court. You're never going to master your craft. You've got to be out on the court playing the game, and that means you're going to do it poorly at first. However, the good news is that there are people out there who, even if you do it poorly, that is, I don't mean like at a level of malpractice. I mean at the level that's below the level you'd like to be at. But there are still people out there who will benefit from what you're doing, who'll value it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Dove, you've been hugely generous with your time, and I
Thank
know you
you.
have some other obligations coming up. So uh, we'll pause it there and potentially hope to talk again another day. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Dove.
Thanks for having me, Al.
Cheers, outstanding stuff. Thank you. So just a few last concluding thoughts there on the Dov Gordon interview. Just to thank Dove again for his time and going above and beyond the requirements. As many of you might have noticed, we went a tad beyond the 9 minute usual format. That was because just in the conversation before we hit record, he was open to going a bit longer. If we were in a conversational flow that we both agreed that we'd let that happen. With the 9 minutes, I like to have a little bit of freedom there. That if we're really going in a very strong and interesting direction to continue. Also, his time happened to allow it, so that's why we went off. And when I interview people, that may not be possible. So, but just to pick up on a few points to reiterate their impact on me and how important I think they are is that we all want to be experts. We all want to others to realize our expertise and value that. But at the same time, that the awareness that we're still learning, we're still developing and evolving with our expertise, with the value that we can create and bring, and mixing that with having the humility to say, I don't know everything. I don't have all of the answers, and there are a number of ways people can go. It's not one right way. There's no one pattern for everyone that works. I think it's a very brave statement. It's a very human and humane statement. I think it needs mentioning. So another thanks to Dov there. And that's it from the Goliath podcast for today. Thank you. I hope you tune in again soon.